true north is over there. It's in the complete opposite direction. And here, even more so, down there. This is wild. So what is going on here?
What if some of the most famous ancient stones on Earth were never carved at all? In Bolivia, at a site called Puma Punku, massive H-shaped blocks locked together so precisely that legend says a razor blade cannot fit between them.
Here he found evidence, clearly, of lost high technology. We see laser perfection drilled holes.
For generations, the official story was simple: skilled hands, hammerstones, and bronze chisels. But new 3D scans have uncovered something buried inside these blocks that should not be possible. Right now, scientists across the world are using that data to answer one question. Were these H blocks carved by human hands or built using something we don't yet understand? The site, the legend, and the destruction. There is a stone in Bolivia that carries a legend with it. Locals say the joints between certain blocks are so tight that you cannot slide a razor blade between them. Not a knife, a razor blade. That claim has survived for generations, passed down as local truth. Engineers eventually got down on their knees to test it for themselves, measuring the gaps between the stones one by one. The blade would not fit. The legend was true. These stones are shaped like the letter H. They sit on a wide open plain in the Bolivian highlands, close to Lake Titicaca, in a place called Puma Punku. The name means Door of the Puma, a doorway named after a guardian animal sitting on the threshold of something ancient and unexplained. The official explanation is simple. People carved these stones by hand using hammerstones and bronze chisels nearly 1,500 years ago. No machines, no modern tools, just stone striking stone, over and over until the shapes became perfect. But here is where the story turns dark. In the late 1800s, workers building new railways across Bolivia arrived at this site with dynamite. They were not archaeologists. They did not care what they were standing on. They needed material for train tracks, and Puma Punku was full of stone ready to be taken. So they blew it up. Blocks that had survived over 1,000 years of earthquakes were shattered in seconds. Joints that had held perfectly for centuries were pried apart and hauled away like scrap. Pieces of this ancient platform were crushed down and used as ballast under train tracks. People rode trains over broken pieces of one of the most mysterious structures on Earth, and most of them never knew what they were riding over. This matters more than it sounds. It means the site was disturbed before anyone thought to study it properly. Whatever evidence could have told us exactly how these blocks were shaped may have been destroyed in that single careless period. We are trying to solve a mystery today with pieces missing, and some of those pieces are gone forever, buried under railway lines that still run through Bolivia. There is one more clue that survived the destruction, and it is not physical. It is a story passed down by the Aymara people who live in this region. Their oral tradition says the stones used to flow like water, soft enough to be shaped by hand before hardening into solid, unbreakable rock. Most historians say this is simply a metaphor, a poetic way of describing incredible skill rather than a literal description of what happened. That is a fair and reasonable point. But here is the problem nobody has solved. No one has fully explained how simple stone tools could produce this level of precision, with no visible tool marks and no visible mistakes anywhere on the surface. So, the legend stays open, and so does the question everyone keeps circling back to. What did these builders know that we still do not? Dating the site. You cannot place a rock under a machine and ask it how old it is. Stone does not carry a timestamp inside it. So, when scientists wanted to know exactly when Puma Punku was built, they had to look somewhere else entirely. They found their answer underground. Buried beneath the platform, inside the mound of earth the builders used as a base layer, researchers uncovered small pieces of charcoal, plant matter, and bone. Unlike stone, these organic materials can be tested using radiocarbon dating, a method that measures the slow decay of a specific element inside anything that was once alive. After testing hundreds of samples from across the wider region and refining the results using modern statistical modeling, scientists landed on a clear window. Construction began somewhere between the year 536 and the year 600. That date should make you pause. In the year 536, something strange happened across the entire planet. A mysterious atmospheric event, likely caused by massive volcanic eruptions, filled the sky with dust and blocked out sunlight for months at a time. Crops failed across entire continents. Temperatures dropped sharply. Regions across Europe and Asia fell into famine and hardship so severe that some historians call it one of the worst years to be alive in recorded human history. And while all of that chaos was unfolding on the other side of the world, a civilization in the Bolivian highlands was quietly beginning one of the most precisely engineered stone platforms ever discovered on Earth. There is something important here that often gets overlooked. Dating the dirt beneath the platform is not the same as dating the stones themselves. We know roughly when construction started. We do not know exactly when or how the blocks were shaped into their final, razor-sharp form. That part of the timeline remains a mystery, and it may stay that way permanently. There is strong reason to believe this civilization was larger and more active than most people realize. In 2025, researchers announced the discovery of a temple complex called Palaspata. It sits over 200 kilometers away from Puma Punku, roughly the size of a city block, positioned exactly at a crossroads connecting three major ancient trade routes. Nobody found this temple by digging into the ground first. They found it from the sky, using satellite imagery and drone scans, before a single shovel ever touched the earth. Think carefully about what that means. An entire monumental structure sat hidden and completely forgotten for over 1,000 years. And it was only found almost by accident during a routine highway survey. That should unsettle you. This was never a small, isolated site standing alone in the highlands. This was part of something much larger, something still being uncovered. And if one major structure could stay hidden for this long, without anyone noticing, there is no way to know what else remains buried out there, waiting silently to be found. The engineering, how the blocks fit together. Once you understand that these H-shaped blocks are not decoration, everything about this site becomes far more disturbing. These stones were built to lock together. Each one has notches, grooves, and small raised sections cut directly into it, designed to slide into the block beside it, almost like puzzle pieces carved from solid rock. And the accuracy is not occasional or lucky. It is everywhere, block after block, across the entire site. Every right angle matches its neighbor. Every slot is cut to the same depth and the same width. The same exact standard repeats itself again and again, with almost no variation anywhere. Underneath the visible platform, the foundation tells an even stranger story. Massive stone slabs, some weighing over 100 tons, were placed into carefully leveled trenches and locked together using that same tongue and groove technique. This region sits inside an active earthquake zone. That foundation design spreads the force of shaking ground sideways, instead of letting the pressure build up and snap in one single point. That is not guesswork or luck. That is deliberate, calculated seismic engineering. Modern engineers did not formally understand this exact principle until the 20th century. So, stop and ask yourself a simple question. How does a civilization with no evidence of formal written mathematics arrive at the same advanced solution? Centuries before we did? There is another detail buried in this site that makes the story darker. Archaeologists found small bronze clamps hidden inside the joints between certain blocks, shaped like metal staples. These clamps were made from a mix of copper and tin, poured while still molten into carved stone sockets, then hammered flat to bind the surrounding stones together permanently. Tests on this bronze revealed traces of arsenic. That detail matters more than it first sounds. Arsenic bronze was common in ancient Andean metalwork, but producing it is genuinely dangerous. Melting and pouring this specific alloy releases toxic fumes into the air. The workers responsible for casting these clamps were very likely breathing in poison every single time they did their job. Working at high altitude, next to open fire, with no protection at all, we do not know how many of them fell sick from this. We do not know how many died slowly from a danger nobody had warned them about, all in service of holding these stones together. And we still have not solved the biggest problem sitting at the center of this entire mystery. Nobody has ever found a quarry large enough or close enough to explain where the heaviest slabs actually came from. No matching scar exists in any nearby mountain. No clear evidence has ever shown exactly how something weighing 100 tons was moved across this unforgiving land. That leaves only two real possibilities. Either this civilization had a transport method we have never identified or understood, or moving these stones came at a brutal human cost we will never fully know the true size of. The new 3D scans. For over 100 years, nobody could actually prove what Puma Punku was originally supposed to look like. The destruction from the railway era left the blocks scattered, broken, and completely out of order. Piecing the original structure back together by hand seemed impossible, no matter how carefully anyone tried. In 2018, a team from UC Berkeley attempted a different approach entirely. They scanned every documented block at the site and used those scans to build tiny, millimeter-accurate 3D printed replicas. Their plan was to physically reassemble the entire monument in miniature, solving a puzzle with plastic instead of solid stone. Their first attempt failed completely. The blocks refused to line up correctly. The platform's signature shape refused to come together, no matter how the pieces were arranged. For a while, it genuinely looked like even a modern team, armed with modern tools, could not solve what the original builders had somehow achieved by hand alone. Then they found the actual problem. The old site maps researchers had trusted for decades were simply wrong. Several H blocks had been recorded facing the completely wrong direction. Once the team corrected these orientations and recatalogued every single piece properly, the model suddenly locked into place on its own. That means the accepted historical record had been quietly incorrect for years, and nobody caught the mistake until a small plastic replica refused to fit together. The next major breakthrough came between 2024 and 2025, when a team from Idea Labs used drones and ground-based laser scanning to build a full digital twin of the entire site, accurate to within a few millimeters of the real thing. To put that number into perspective, that margin of error is thinner than a single coin. When the software allowed the digital blocks to settle naturally under simulated gravity, they nested and locked into place entirely on their own, mirroring exactly what the real physical platform has done for over 1,000 years. Then something even stranger happened during this process. Machine learning was used to study the completed models, and it detected hidden mathematical patterns and repeating proportions built directly into the design. Patterns that human researchers, staring at these exact same blocks for over a century, had never once consciously noticed. An artificial mind found deliberate order in an ancient design that human eyes had completely missed for generations of careful study. What all of this actually proves is significant. These blocks were never randomly carved by instinct. They were built as a kit of standardized, interchangeable parts, fully planned out before a single stone was even cut. This was not trial and error. This was a design system. But there is a clear limit to what this technology can tell us. It proves how the blocks were designed to fit together with incredible precision. It does not yet prove how they were physically shaped in the first place. That question still belongs entirely to the stone itself. The sandstone mystery. For more than 100 years, one question has haunted every researcher who has ever studied Puma Punku closely. Where did the sandstone actually come from? Some of these blocks weigh up to 130 tons. That is heavier than a fully loaded jet plane sitting on the ground. And despite decades of careful searching, nobody has ever found a quarry nearby that matches the size, texture, or finish of this exact stone. No matching scar exists in any surrounding mountainside. It is as if the material simply appeared out of nowhere. Recently, scientists decided to look closer, down at a level no human eye could ever see unassisted. They sliced thin sections of the sandstone and studied them under a scanning electron microscope. What they found did not match anything found in the surrounding natural geology. Inside the stone was sodium carbonate, also known as natron, present in amounts that should not naturally exist in that region at all. Natron is not some mystery ingredient pulled from nowhere. Scientists know it well because it appears heavily throughout ancient Egyptian mortar and mummification chemistry. Finding it here, on the opposite side of the planet, inside a culture with no documented contact with Egypt whatsoever, is either an extraordinary coincidence or evidence that two separate ancient civilizations independently discovered the same chemical process, thousands of miles apart, without ever once meeting each other. This detail supports a theory that sounds almost unbelievable at first. What if these blocks were never carved from a mountain at all? What if they were built the exact same way we build concrete today? Researchers decided to test this idea directly, rather than simply theorize about it. They mixed local sand, volcanic ash, and natron together with water, creating a soft, moldable paste. When that paste hardened completely, they tested it using the same lab equipment used on the original ancient blocks. The density, durability, and chemical signature matched almost perfectly, sample for sample. This single discovery would explain nearly everything strange about these stones. The crisp, uniform edges, the complete absence of any tool marks, joints cut so tight that they genuinely defy hand carving with primitive tools. All of it makes far more logical sense if these blocks were poured into a mold, rather than carved from raw rock by hand over months. Mainstream geology has pushed back hard against this entire idea. Skeptics argue that the natron could have entered the stone much later, through trade, environmental contamination, or simple exposure over centuries, rather than through deliberate ancient chemistry. But if this theory is ever fully proven true, the implications become enormous. It would mean an entire team, dedicated purely to chemistry rather than stonework, existed within this civilization well over 1,000 years ago. Not stonemasons swinging hammers, chemists mixing formulas. This case remains wide open, unresolved, and deeply contested, and it is about to get significantly stranger. The other stones, and the ongoing lab test. If the sandstone raised one impossible question, the H blocks raise something even harder to explain away. These particular blocks are made of andesite, a type of volcanic rock. Volcanic rock forms under extreme heat. Heat intense enough to destroy any trace of organic material caught inside it during formation, which means finding anything organic hidden inside andesite should be completely impossible under normal natural conditions. In 2019, researchers found exactly that impossible thing. Using the same scanning technology applied earlier to the sandstone, they detected a clear nitrogen signal inside the H blocks, along with distinct traces of carbon. Both are strong signs of organic material, something that should have been completely burned away the moment this volcanic rock formed naturally in the earth. It should not have survived, and yet it did. One explanation stands out clearly among the theories. What if plant extracts or animal material were deliberately mixed into a paste, combined with volcanic material and water, and used to cast these stones the exact same way the sandstone may have been cast earlier? Not carved from a mountain, but built from a mixture, poured while soft, and left to harden into something that would fool every geologist who studied it for the next 1,500 years. The leading voice behind this specific idea is Joseph Davidovits, founder of the Geopolymer Institute. It is important to state clearly that his theories sit outside mainstream archaeology, and many respected experts remain openly unconvinced by his conclusions. Still, his team's own testing found microscopic pitting and a uniform texture inside these blocks that simply does not appear in natural andesite taken from nearby quarry sites. When they recreated a similar mixture inside a lab, using natural acids, guano, and local clay, the resulting stone matched the strength and internal structure of the real ancient blocks almost exactly. Critics have not stayed silent on any of this. Many argue the nitrogen signal could easily come from surface contamination, or even a flaw somewhere in the testing equipment itself. They are right to demand stronger proof before accepting a theory this significant. So researchers built a far stronger test to settle the argument properly. Small core samples were carefully taken from at least 8 separate H blocks and sent, under sealed and coded labels, to completely independent laboratories around the world. None of these labs know which sample came from which specific block, and none of them know what the others have found. This removes any possibility of bias quietly affecting the final results. Those samples are sitting inside those labs right now. In the coming months, the coded labels will finally be opened, and when they are, the answer will not come from a historian studying old records, or from a legend passed down through generations. It will come from a chemist reading a printout. If organic material shows up again, confirmed across multiple separate labs, and if it can be reliably dated back to that same construction window between the years 536 and 600, this would represent one of the earliest confirmed uses of cast stone technology anywhere in the entire ancient world, centuries before anyone believed this kind of chemistry existed. If it does not appear again, one of the most compelling fringe theories in modern archaeology collapses completely, and the mystery of how these blocks were shaped returns to zero. Either way, the wait is almost over, so ask yourself the one question nobody can answer yet. Were these stones built, or were they born from the earth exactly the way we were always told?